Well, hello everyone, and thank you for coming. Let's, is this the 6th class on the Anapanasati Sutra? We've been doing this for 6 weeks. I think I have listed that I did 5 last week, so I think it's the 6th, but I don't know whether that's, it seems like a lot. So we've been talking about the Anapanasati Sutra for a while now. I went into great length about the historical background of the sutra and how it was composed and who's speaking and everything. I'm not going to repeat on that. Some of that's quite obvious if you actually read it. It's Majjhima Nikaya number 118. But we have, more specifically, my goal was to get you to take these 16 steps seriously. There are very few sort of meditation sutras that actually attempt to teach you the mechanics of meditating. So there's this one, which lists 16 steps of breathing meditation. Anapana means breathing in and breathing out. Sati means mindfulness. So it's mindfulness of breathing in and breathing out. What are the other meditation sutras that are important? Satipatthana, Majjhima Nikaya number 10. And that's the Atthana, Upatthana is foundations or establishments of sati, of mindfulness. And it establishes a method. We've gone into a little bit of the analysis of the Buddha's first talk, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta. Does anyone know the fourth noble truth? Can anyone recite it to me? It's the knowledge of the path leading to the end of suffering. And what is the first factor? Right view, samadhi. And what's the second one? Right resolve, right intention, sama sankappo. And then what's the third one? Right speech, sama vacha. What's the next one?
Right action.
Sama kamanta.
Yeah.
It's kamanta.
Action.
Right action. Mm-hmm. And sama ajivo, right livelihood. Okay, so we've named 5 so far. There are 3 remaining, and this is the samadhi kanda, the aggregate of concentration, the last 3 that we're striving to develop. What is the first of the 3 samadhi kandas, or the samadhi aggregates?
Right concentration.
Right effort. Sama vayamo. Mm-hmm. What's the next one?
Mindfulness.
Right mindfulness.
Right mindfulness.
Sama sati. Sama sati. And what's the last one now? Sama samadhi. Okay. All right. Now, what does right mindfulness mean?
Concentration.
What is right mindfulness? Actually, it wouldn't hurt if you learned these in Pali. I mentioned I wanted to chant a little, but samadhi, sama sankappo, samadhi, sama sankappo. Okay, all together now. Samadhi, sama sankappo, sama vacha, sama kammanto, sama ajivo. Okay, so now all 5 together. Samadhi, sama sankappo, sama vacha, sama kammanto, sama ajivo. Is it sama kamanta or sama kammanto? I'm blanking. I apologize. It's sama kammanto.
Kamanta plural.
What's that? Kamanta is plural. Okay. Okay, so we have singular. Sama kammanto, sama ajivo. Okay. That kammanto is right action.
So sama is right?
Sama is how we translate right.
Okay.
So let's do that one more time, the first 5. Samadhi, sama sankappo, Samawacha, Samakamanto, Samajivu. Okay. Is everyone feeling like they got those before we move on? Okay, one more time.
Thinking I must.
Samaditi, Sankapu, Samawacha, Samakamanto, Samajivu. Ajivu, right livelihood. Okay. Sama Sankapu, Samawacha, Samakamanto, Sama Ajivu. Okay. Alright. Sama Vayamo, right effort. Sama Sati, Sama Samadhi. Okay, can you do the last three now? Vayamo, Sama Vayamo, Sama Sati, Sama Samadhi. Okay, one more time. Sama Vayamo, Sama Sati, Sama Samadhi. Okay, let's do the all 8. Ready? Samaditi, Sama Sankapo, Vacha, Sama Kamanto, Sama Ajivo, Sama Vayamo, Sama Sati, Sama Samadhi. Okay.
The last two.
All right, now what is Samasati? What is right mindfulness? The gatekeeper, okay?
Is it?
He remembers the gatekeeper story. I told them the gatekeeper story last time. I also taught them the quail and the hawk story to teach them about mindfulness.
Well, you talked for almost an hour on what it is. So
What on Sati last time? Well, I just want to see what you remember. Does anyone remember
it's about memory. So
It's all about memory. So, what does anyone remember the food story? The
hawk.
Yeah. So no, the food
Oh,
story.
the food story.
So all right. So there was once a king with a very good chef, and the chef. This is the Buddha telling the story. The chef watched the king eat, and so he knew which sauces, whether spicy, whether sweet, whether he liked sour dishes or whether he liked creamy dishes, and the chef would watch what the king would take. And so that's how he knew. He would watch what the king would take, and he knew at what day he would like what food, and et cetera, et cetera. And the Buddha compared that to someone with good mindfulness. You have to be that attentive to see what your mind is reaching for and what it needs for its nutrition and what to feed it. Okay, so it's that type of careful, selective awareness that you need to bring in to your meditation, to be attentive, because you should think of things that arise in your mind as food, and you want to give it the healthiest food in your mind, the healthiest food that you can give. So the Buddha gave another food-related definition of sati in the fortress analogy. So the Buddha compared the different aspects of what you need for a good to be developing on the path, and he compared the sati to a gatekeeper. So that's the person who's watching based on memory of what the bad sorts who are coming into the castle, the royal castle, whether they should let them in or not. So there's some distractions that might be good food for the mind, and there's some distractions that might not be good. These themes and the 16 steps are good themes, are good food for the mind while you're meditating on the in-breath and the out-breath. Impermanence, for example, is a good theme for the mind. Part of the mind can be attending to the in-breath and the out-breath, as either background awareness or foreground awareness. So the mind kind of has this capacity to be on 2 feet at the same time, sort of aware of the whole body processes at the same time and a home base in the center. And so you can be watching the in and out breath and developing the themes at the same time. And so that's where evaluation comes in. You need to be directing the mind to the breath, to the in and out breath, and distinguishing between the in-breath and the out-breath, because all 16 steps are based on the knowledge the difference between an in-breath and out-breath, because you breathe in, you're supposed to do something, and you breathe out, and you're supposed to do something else. So you do need a foundational, good solid awareness of the in-breath and the out-breath. It helps to know whether you're breathing in or whether you're breathing out. My first meditation teacher used to say, sometimes, if he would see me, he'd say, "Are you breathing in or out?" So he said, "If you don't know the answer, you're not meditating properly." And you storm off. Or if I would breathe in to answer him, he'd say, "Oh, you took too long," and he'd walk away. I said, "But I know I was breathing in." So it's that type of immediate awareness that you need to sort of develop, of in and out breathing. And you can do that when you're waiting for the bus. You can do that when you're walking to work. You can do it on your breaks. You can train your mind to be aware of the in-breath and the out-breath. And the Buddha tells us in the first two of the steps that we should discern, paññati, between in-breathing that's long and out-breathing that's long, and in-breathing that's short and out-breathing that's short. And so, long breath, long out-breath. Short in, short out. So, and there is every variation between all of those. And sometimes you do need to take a deep breath because you're tired and your body needs oxygen. Sometimes you can be caught in a mental loop in your head that you can't solve, and sometimes you just need to shift your breath, because sometimes our breath feeds our mental state. And if our mental state isn't good and you can't recognize the breath, you should at least alter your breathing. Just try and change it, calm it down. If you feel it's a little tense, try and relax around the breath and slow down. Or take a deep inhale and break whatever mental process is being supported by that repetitive breath that you are doing, and shift and change out of it. Try and shift back into a more natural form of breathing. So I wanted to ask you then, I wanted to move on to sort of more generally about mindfulness. So there is a selective awareness that's there. We're selecting these themes. Remember, there are 4 tetrads in the 16 steps, and the first tetrad relates to which foundation?
Body.
Foundation, good, of the body. In the Satipatthana Sutra, the first of the examples of doing Satipatthana method with the body is the first tetrad, the first 4 steps. And what are the first 4 steps? Does anyone remember? We might as well read them. You have it open.
Mindfulness of the breathing in and out.
Mindfulness of breathing in and out. But
In long and
Short
out
and
long.
long.
so breathing in long, he discerns. I'm changing the translation here from Bhikkhu Bodhis to Thanisaro Bhikkhus. Breathing in long, he discerns, I breathe in long. Or breathing out long, he discerns, I breathe out long. Breathing in short, he discerns, I breathe in short. Or breathing out short, he discerns, I breathe out short. Those are the first 2, and they're separate from the following 14, just based on that verb. They're also, which is the verb paññati, he understands, the bhikkhu paññati. And then the following 14 are sikati, tisikati. They are trainings. It's a different verb. And then, and they're also in the future tense. Remember the first 2, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, they are in the present tense. I breathe in long. It's a present tense. Why is that? Why did I say and the rest are in the future tense?
Because you are breathing all the time.
You're breathing in and out, and then based on that, you're training yourself to breathe in, experiencing the whole body. And he trains thus, I shall breathe out, experiencing the whole body. And then the 4th is, he trains thus, I shall breathe in, calming the bodily sankharas. And he trains thus, I shall breathe out, calming the bodily formations, the bodily sankharas. So that's why the rest of them are in the present tense.
Fabrication.
It's a fabrication of the mind. Remember, you're pointing yourself in a certain direction. You're pointing your mind in a certain direction. You're not there yet, perhaps. That's why you're training yourself to do it. So it's a goal-orientated approach to future tense. A lot of people think of mindfulness as forgetting the past and the future, and I'm trying to open everyone up to the idea again that the Buddha had a much larger concept of what the present is. It would include our past, a little bit of our past, a selective past, and which is the wisdom we learned from what caused me to be distracted, what caused me to be concentrated, being aware of those causes and keeping them going in the present moment. Well, this worked in the past. Let me try this to get myself back on track. I'm sleepy. You can diagnose yourself as sleepy. And you look in your bag of tools and you say, oh, I need to take a deep inhale and a deep outhale, etc. And maybe it'll wake me up. And so this is a tool that uses a little bit of the past wisdom that you've seen in the past, and it's applying it to the present, and it's testing whether it's going to work again now.
Isn't that what the suttas really are in that way? They are a collective memory of
And a collective memory.
of what people have experienced,
Mhm.
right?
That's a good point. And the training back in the Buddha's day was to memorize these sutras. And so we know from just this sutra alone that the Buddha divided up his disciples into students who were working on, say, the 7 factors of enlightenment or the Noble Eightfold Path. And they were training in different areas. And they were memorizing probably the sutras relating to those. But we also know Bhikkhu Bodhi reports that at this time we know that there were monks who recited the Digha Nikaya. They were sort of sutra monks, and they would recite the long discourses, and some would recite the Majjhima Nikaya, and some would be Vinaya monks, and they would recite the Vinaya. And so they were specialized. But here, as a training tool, they were also specialized in the Bodhipakkhya Dhamma, or the 37 factors of enlightenment. And these are delineated, listed here in this sutra. So we know certain monks were focusing on certain areas of the Dhamma to focus on certain teachings. And we know the Buddha stayed an extra month from this Anapanasati Sutra. Remember, there was the Pavarana ceremony. He was very pleased with the progress the monks were saying, and he said, still, I'm going to stay one more month. And so on the full moon of this day, I'm going to stay one more month. I want you to put forth more effort to attain the unattained, to attain higher stages of enlightenment. And he wanted to stay there so that his presence would be an encouragement for people. And at the end of that month, they were working on the 7 sets, so the Bodhipakkhya Dhamma, these important factors that we'll have to maybe talk about separately in another class. And he selected, among all those, he selected the 4 foundations of mindfulness and the 7 factors of enlightenment. And he uses the Anapanasati 16 steps as a thread between the two to take you all the way from through your practice to the end of your practice. So, and the Buddha, when he became enlightened, was practicing Anapanasati, so mindfulness of breathing in and mindfulness of breathing out. And he encouraged it most from people, from his students. So I want to go back to, so we just listed the first 4 steps, the first bodily tetrad. What is the definition? I asked you this before. What is the definition of samasati? How is doing these first 4 steps related to the foundation of as a gatekeeper? Well, let's define it first. Kaye kayanupasi viharati, atapi sampajanyo satima, vineya loke abhijja domanasang. That's the definition of the foundation of mindfulness in the body. So, a bhikkhu dwells contemplating the body in the body, ardent, alert, and mindful, subduing greed and distress with respect to the world, is a possible translation. Let's try and think about that.
That's in the Satipatthana Sutra.
That's the definition of
in the Satipatthana.
in the Satipatthana Sutra. It's
So we talked about that last time as potentially being associated with going to the root of a tree and placing mindfulness in front of oneself. But I don't think it's part of the refrain that just precedes it. That's why I associated with that. It's not on the Anapanasati Sutra.
It is.
No, the going to the root of the tree is, but not the free from desire.
Oh, that extra bit.
It does precede it. That's why
We were talking about the fact that the Satipatthana Sutra includes one of the ways to practice mindfulness of the body is to look at the postures. So remember, we went through the different ways in which you can practice mindfulness of the body. And the Satipatthana lists several ways of doing that. The first one is the first tetrad. We have what are the other ones? Mindfulness of postures. So when you're sitting, know that you're sitting. When you're standing, know that you're standing. When you're walking, know that you're walking. When you're lying down, know that you're lying down. Okay? Kayan. Yes, 4 postures. Yeah. And then there's also sampajanya, which is sort of mindfulness in any posture. It's not only when I'm going from sitting to standing, but there's the movement that I'm standing, that I'm in the process of standing, and there's the process of sitting back down. And there's the process of holding yourself sitting while you're sitting. There are a lot of processes. And so, but the Buddha includes everything in your life, including defecating and going to the bathroom is a worthy object for your mindfulness. When walking, coming or going, reaching, pulling in, etc., all those activities, you want to be mindful in all those activities. And so we talked that sitting, when the Buddha was first, he gives his famous, when he tells people to sit down and meditate, he always has this specific sort of statement that he gives, and which is, here, a bhikkhu gone to the forest, to the root of a tree or to an empty hut, sits down, having folded his legs crosswise, set his body erect, and established mindfulness in front of him. Ever mindful he breathes in, ever mindful he breathes out. So we were talking about just that formula alone, how there's quite a bit of an emphasis on the body, mindfulness of the body there, taking the right sitting posture. Sometimes using the breath to relax, to be able to sit in such a way that dispels pain over the long term, knowing that if I'm sitting too erect like this, I'm going to have pain in my neck or my shoulder or my lower back, and maybe breathing in such a way that allows you to open up in those areas so that you don't feel pain down the road is one way of practicing mindfulness of the body as well. So I wanted to talk about this definition. So, kaye kayanupasi viharati. So a monk dwells, viharati is to dwell. This is a vihara. This is a dwelling for monks. And viharati is the verb, third person singular, to dwell. And anupasana is repeated, anu is repeated, and pasana is to see, the act of seeing. So it's the repeated contemplation of something. And kaye is the locative tense of the verb kaya, or the noun, the body. So a monk dwells repeatedly contemplating the body in the body. You might see it described as a monk abides or dwells, contemplating or observing the body in the body. You might see it translated as a monk abides or dwells, contemplating the body with respect to the body, because the locative tense can mean this concept of regarding or with respect to, or it can literally mean in. And then the next is atapi, which is ardency, which is the ardent nature. So that's where, what is right effort in Pali? Sama vayamo. So that's where at least effort comes in, whether it's, hopefully it's right effort. It's an indication that you should be applying the right type of effort, at least the right type of energy. So we have the verb atapi and otapa in Pali, and the Buddha plays with sounds in the poetry when he speaks. And so sometimes you have this interesting use where the Buddha is referring to atapi and utapa at the same time. And that is the idea that if something arises in your mind that's not worthy of your noble state of mind, which is attending to the in-breathing and the out-breathing, that you should abandon it quickly. So the Buddha says, and remember that image of mindfulness where you should act as quickly as if your mind is on fire. The Buddha says, if your turban is on fire, sorry, not your mind, and you should drop it, take it off and stomp it out immediately. So this is the concept of otapa. We have hiri and otapa, shame and compunction. And so shame is kind of like this sense, maybe it's not translated in the best way, but for a Buddhist, it's a positive state of mind. It's the statement that I am worthier than this object in my mind. And in the sense of dropping it, making a decision not to pick it up again is the sense of otapa. And so this sense of right effort, which is geared towards the non-arising of unskillful thinking, preventing the arising of unskillful thinking, the maintenance of already arisen skillful thinking, and the wish to give rise to skillful thinking. So right effort is defined with respect to skillful objects and unskillful objects. Unskillful objects you want to drop as quickly as you can, and you want to notice whenever in your meditation, whether it's an in-breath or an out-breath, you know that you're more susceptible and you're weaker on an in-breath or an out-breath to certain types of images, just like the cook who knows how to read the mind of the king. You have to read your own mind to know where you're going to trip and where the unskillful thinking is going to come up, and you have to know what are your tool sets for when that happens. You have to know, so you have to watch that mind to know when you're going to start daydreaming and to drop it. And the skillful states of mind as well. You want to be quick. The Buddha says you want to be quick to abandon unskillful thoughts. You want to have a quick mind to do that. And you want to have a quick mind to recognize the skillful thoughts as well. And so you, instead of just sitting there spaced out watching your meditation and thinking meditation is just about being calm, and it is, you have to be calm before you can develop this quick mind. So you do need to do a lot of calming meditation. And remember the last step of each of the tetrads is about, the fourth one is calming the bodily formations. What is the eighth one? I shall breathe in, calming the mental formation. I shall breathe out, calming the mental formation. So calming is a very important aspect here, and liberating the mind. Breathing is the last of the steps of the third tetrad is I shall breathe in, liberating the mind. I shall breathe out, liberating the mind. And the last one, and the fourth step of the fourth tetrad is I shall breathe in, contemplating relinquishment, letting go. And I shall breathe out, contemplating relinquishment, letting go. So those are extremely calming states of mind. And you can think of full release as being a calming state of mind as well. Non-resistance. When the Buddha describes the path to enlightenment, he always talks about the stage right before attaining Nibbana. He always talks about, and when there was no longer resistance in the monk's or nun's mind, he or she attained Nibbana. And so non-resistance. So when we're resisting things, desire is present in the mind, right? And we know that desire, or tanha, is the root of unskillful thoughts. It's the root of the It's the cause of suffering. It's the second noble truth, right? It's tanha. And so when the mind is not resisting, then there's also no desire for something different. We're constantly reaching for something new, reaching for something better. We're never satisfied, even once we get it. The pleasure of what didn't last long enough, or it wasn't as good, and so we go after it a second time, and another time, and we go after the new thing, and then someone tells us about another thing, and we go after that. And so this mind of non-resistance, which precedes the seeing of Nibbana, is quite the opposite. It's accepting things as they are. It's accepting life as it is. One monk, famous monk, I think it was Jan Fung in Thailand, was said, "What's your favorite food?" And he said, "It's the food that I'm eating." And he said, "Just the same. Do you have a favorite?" He said, "Just the same as the breath. I don't have a favorite breath. It's the breath I'm breathing." So it's this state of non-resistance and acceptance that is upekkha, kind of like equanimity. That's very important to the understanding of the path. It's a highly advanced stage. It's not the same as Nibbana itself, but it is a necessary state of the mind that you need to work on and develop. So it is the last of the 7 factors of enlightenment as well. And so because it's the last of the 7 factors of enlightenment, people often confuse it with the goal of the path. Actually, the goal of the path is panya, discernment. And in discernment, there's not always upekkha. Sometimes you need to be selective and discerning. So there's a balance between upekkha and sometimes this challenging more type of thinking of panya. Well, there's a lot we can say about that. So anyway, atapi is definitely related to samavayamo, right effort.
Did you see that in the first 4, talking about observing the breath and then shaping the breath? And shaping the breath,
Those are, changing it, modifying it. Sometimes you have to sort of pull the rug out from underneath unskillful thinking, and say you have anger in the mind. Well, there's a type of breathing that feeds anger. So think about it as food. What if you pulled that? What if you figured out what your angry mind was eating and you stopped feeding it? Think of solving issues that way. Think of solving anger that way. What if not only you took food away from it, but you gave it better food, like metta? What would that be like in your meditation if you started feeding your mind, instead of feeding that image of someone who hurt you? Oh, my friend said bad words to me. What if you dropped that and stopped feeding yourself? You're feeding yourself that image by remembering it. You're using your memory unskillfully. What if you used your memory skillfully? What if you tried to remember, ahang sukito homi, may I be happy. Niduko homi, may I be free from stress and pain. Abhya pajo homi, may I be free from oppression. Or awero homi, may I be free from animosity. Anigo homi, may I be free from harm. Sukhiyatanang pariharami, may I live happily and at ease. So repeat those things. Learn those simple sentences and recite them to yourself and really try and feel them. Or just simply, if you can, at first, just remember, may I be well, may I be happy, may I be peaceful. May all beings be well. May all beings be happy. May all beings be peaceful. So simply we can counter unskillful thinking, as the Buddha mentions in the Vittakasantana Sutta, the Majjhima Nikaya number 19. You can feed the opposite of anger in your mind by applying metta. In the Buddha's...
Isn't it helpful to focus the metta to the source of your anger? So may he be happy.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes that's hard to do right away.
If you're really angry.
That's hard to do the first thing sometimes. But yeah, that if that works for you, do it. Keep doing it. But the Buddha gives 5 methods in the Vittakasantana Sutta, which is worth reading, Majjhima Nikaya number 19, on how to encourage I'm still talking about atapi, by the way, ardency. How to encourage skillful thinking. How to prevent unskillful thinking from arising. You can read that and read those 5 methods and apply them to this bodily foundation to understand what atapi means, to understand what right effort means. It's not just having a lot of energy in your meditation. You have to have a direction for it. You have to know where you're headed. You have to have a sense of right and wrong. Remember in the Anapanasati Sutra, the Buddha defines the Buddhas as the encouragement. I actually have it here. As the encouragement of skillful thinking and the abandoning of unskillful thinking. So he says, Sabba papasa akaranang kusalasa upasampada sachita pariyoda panang etang buddhana sasanang. The non-doing of all evil, the performance of what is skillful, the cleansing of one's own mind. This is the Buddha's teaching. So it's very simple. It's right effort. It's all about, it's atapi. When you're practicing this, it's ardency. This is true foundation of mindfulness right here in these words. The non-doing of all evil. Well, you do that in your mind. If anger comes up in your mind, you don't do it anymore. You recognize that you're feeding your anger with the perception of someone who harmed you. You keep bringing that image into your mind and you keep feeding your anger. Well, stop feeding your anger. Feed your metta. Okay? Just change your food source. Just, you notice a king is getting fat because he's eating too many oily things. Put healthier food in front of him. Okay? Sometimes you need to change the object in your mind. And this is different than just watching the mind, things come in and out. You need panya, you need wisdom to apply it in the present moment. So kusalasa upasampada, the performance of what is skillful. And so keep doing the metta practice until your heart is not filled with any more frustration and anger. And that's how you sachita pariyoda panang. By practicing right effort, you purify your mind. You keep removing and you will win. Like I told you, I was a counter. I counted all the unskillful thoughts in my mind and I saw them disappearing. And I was confident that this method worked because I could see it happening mathematically and statistically in my mind. My mind was becoming purer and purer. And if you want to try something like that, please go ahead, but it will convince you. Ehi pasiko, come and see for yourself. This is something that you could do for yourself and see for yourself that this method will purify your mind. So that's atapi. Sampajanya we talked about already. It's alert in all the different modes that you're doing. Satima is mindfulness, but we know that mindfulness is samasati and sati. The Buddha, when he wanted to say sati, he said sati. When he wanted to say samasati, he said samasati. When he wanted to say micha sati, he said micha sati, wrong mindfulness. When he had a full vocabulary. He talked about satindriya. He had different vocabulary terms for sati. In English, we only have sati. We only have mindfulness. And how did he define satindriya? The faculty of mindfulness. He defined it as the ability to remember things that were done long ago. And then he included in right mindfulness. So we know that sati here probably refers to the memory, remembering the skills, applying memory, attention to the right set of skills that are going to purify your mind. That is dropping unskillful things and picking up skillful things. So it relates back to atapi, ardency, and right effort. Okay? And then we have Vinaya Loke Abhijja Domanasang. So it's Vinati, is to sort of conquer and overcome. This is a present or a gerund, present participle, Vinaya. It's strong. It's like mastering almost, or subduing. It's a strong verb here. And it's overcoming greed and distress with respect in the world. So it's keeping you protected from things from suffering that can pull you down. It's creating a center, and it's getting you ready for samadhi, which is your internal food. So you no longer have to feed off of things in the world, and you can begin feeding on higher foods. Remember the definition in the Fortress Sutra in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha compares Samadhi to health food, to the mind. Each of the 4 stages of the jhanas refer to better and better food for the mind. And when you're feeding yourself, the jhanas, you're not feeding off of hindrances, or the pancha nivarana, or the 5 hindrances. And what are the pancha nivarana?
Greed,
Lobha,
central desire, anger,
anger.
Doubt.
Is the 5th one?
5th one.
Sloth and torpor.
Sloth and torpor.
Worry and restlessness, anxiety and restlessness, and doubt.
Doubt
Okay.
is also-
But why not pride? Why not
Okay,
pride?
so now I need to answer all your questions. All right, so can we go in order?
Of my questions, no, we'll never finish.
No, I remember. Yeah. Vitaka and vichara. So we were saying, oh, this is interesting. Why did the Buddha, of all the thoughts in the mind, the Buddha said there are 5 ways to concentrate the mind. There's vitaka, vichara, or 5 components to the first jhana, we could say. Vitaka and vichara. And then we have piti and sukha and ekagata. So we have vitaka, which is thinking. Vichara, evaluating. We have piti, which is joy or rapture. And we have sukha, which is pleasure. And we have ekagata, which is one-pointedness. Ekagata, one-pointedness, meaning focusing the mind on one point. All right, so let's start quickly with vitaka and vichara. These are special words for mental processes. Vitaka, taka is touching. See how I'm touching this? Taka. It's like it refers to the root word to touch. Vi is in a special way, like vipassana, something that you're doing in a special way, or it can mean close, like you can use the word something that's close to another thing. I like that term, closeness. It's touching in a special way, in a very special, close way. So when the mind is touching, when the mind is aware of the breath, think of the mind as an energy field that's sort of touching the physical sensations of the breath in all their complexity. So you're actually feeling changing predominant sensations on the in-breath. It starts off maybe as a pressure, and then a lifting pressure, and a lightening. Maybe there's some tightness, and then a shifting to the right maybe, and then an exhale that sort of flattens or rolls off or flutters, and then stops, and then starts again. So all these are touching sensations, and your mind is touching these changing sensations. So it's vitaka. So there's a point at which the mind physically touches the predominant sensations of the breath, and on the in-breath and the out-breath. Okay, so think of it as touching, almost like rays of light that you're shining, bouncing against the breath, so that you're aware of its presence. There's contact, pasa, of the mind on the breath. And so this is in-breathing and out-breathing, vitaka. And Sayadaw Upanita used to talk about vitaka as directing the mind. So it's like driving a car. You are holding the car in a certain direction and you're going in that direction. That's vitaka. He compared it to playing marbles, throwing marbles at the other marble. You try and knock it off. You all try and hit this point. Have you ever played marbles? So you try and knock them off. You try and hit that point. So vitaka is that point at which you are, like aiming. Or anyone played billiards? So it's like aiming at the pocket there. It's like lining up. And that's kind of what you got to do with your mind. You kind of got to line it up towards the breath. You have to direct it, and if it falls off and you miss, you're going to miss tons of times. It's like when you start playing billiards. You're going to miss. You might get lucky every once in a while, but you're going to miss. You're going to be like a drunk person. You're not sober yet. And you have to sober up your mind and get clear and practice. You have to get practice at aiming, but you have to feel what it's like to actually move the stick or to throw the ball. Have you ever played horseshoes? Throwing a horseshoe at a stake. It's aiming. Vitaka is like aiming. It's lining yourself up, getting your body right, your posture right, lining up to the breath. It's getting your mind right and knowing where the goal is, where you need to touch. And it's like shooting something at the breath each time, but never missing. That's your goal. You want to aim, aim, aim.
So kind of like secondary point, like you're, like in all your examples, you're kind of like setting an object off.
Mm-hmm.
Is that an important part of that concept?
Yes, the mind is always casting stuff away from it.
Okay.
It can remain behind and still cast things off.
Okay.
And that's what you're looking for, is the mind that remains behind, because that's the mind you need for vichara, for evaluating. So you can say, oops, I missed.
Okay.
Oops, I missed.
Robert, I looked up the passage that I mentioned last time from Majjhima Nikaya 36,
Uh-huh.
which talks about the memory, but also these two forms of thought in this little passage.
Oh, really? Can you
It
read?
says, I recall that when my father Sakyan was occupied while I was sitting in the cool shade of a rose apple tree, quite secluded from sensual pleasures, secluded from unwholesome states. So he's remembering the state that he was in, which leads into how the Satipatthana Sutra describes being seclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
I entered upon and abided in the first jhana, which is accompanied by applied and sustained thought, with rapture and pleasure born of seclusion. Could that be the path to enlightenment? Then, following on that memory, came the realization that is indeed the path to enlightenment. So you talk about sati and memory, like it's very much captured in this moment of being someone on the wrong path, and then remembering a state in which there was an approach to the path,
Mm-hmm.
and then utilizing that to
Mm-hmm.
have insight.
Right.
So it's very interesting. That's his own personal experience of
Right. The Buddha.
having.
Did you understand what he just said? It was very quick.
It's the Buddha's memory of his childhood that happens when he's
Sitting under a rose apple tree. His
Right.
father was performing a ceremony. He was the head of the Sakya clan. And
at the present moment he was trying to attain
He was
a state
striving
by
for
not
enlightenment.
eating and
Mhm.
deprivation of the body, and so this is a moment when he
realized that
recognizes-
some pleasures were good.
the middle
Meant-
it's the middle way.
And the pleasures he found that were good, he defines as samadhi. They're pleasures, they're specific pleasures for the mind. He just read the formula. And the Buddha is using the word vitaka and vichara there. But Bhikkhu Bodhi, the translation that he read there, uses the word applied thought and what was the other word?
Sustained thought.
Sustained thought. And Bhikkhu Bodhi uses those translations based on the commentaries. But I'm using definitions based on how you experience it when you're feeling it. But it's similar. When you apply your thought, meaning you direct it, it's similar type of thing. And when sustaining is similar too, to be able to keep it going, persistence.
So can you consider like all thoughts that aren't, so there's this mind that stays behind, that's the observational mind. So are all, they're not we, but they're like, so you could say
It's impermanence.
well, that's impermanent, but is that all taka? Like, is that all?
What is? I'm sorry.
Is that all like, kind of like you've hit the ball and it's gone in a direction, and now you have this thought. And
Yeah.
at all times you're doing that.
It's a sankhara. It's a fabrication of the mind.
Okay.
Um,
Trying to like extrapolate the analogy is not working.
But it's a good way to sort of understand what sankhara is. It's the mind can produce other minds, and it can also watch some of those minds disappear and die and fall off. And so you can watch the mind itself, which is impermanent, can watch many states of mind get produced from a sort of feeling of a center or a feeling of a source.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch it sort of use that attention, that perception of the mind. You can create a perception of the breath that is wholesome, that keeps you there, that invites you to continually to be present with that breath. But those are sankharas, so they're bound to fail you at some point, every one of them. But you can get better and better and better at producing those perceptions of the breath. You can get, I have this mind right now. My mind is angry. My mind is frustrated. I need this perception of the breath to get myself back on track. But at some point you have to drop that perception. And like any sankhara, it's going to fade away, and you need to reinvent a new one to keep you interested and alive. It's kind of what's happening at a very deep level at every stage of meditation. And truly seeing that will be a huge awakening point. It'll help you understand how to get into samadhi, and it'll help you understand how to stay in samadhi, right concentration. But it's based on this idea that we were talking about a few weeks ago of mindfulness of the body, which is breathing in, experiencing the whole body, breathing out, experiencing the whole body. So the more you can see with the whole body of breath, the more you can actually see when the mind is going away from that whole body of breathing and those sensations and inventing something new, and when it's inventing something wholesome, that'll keep it present in the whole body breathing and the whole body out breathing. And when you get those things going, for example, when I was at my very first meditation retreat, when I was meditating all day long from 4 a.m. until I was exhausted 11 p.m. at night, sitting, walking all day long, I remember I felt this. Do you know what a stupa is? It's wide at the base, and it comes in holy relics of the Buddha, and the saints are usually in them. Well, I felt the base of my breath was wide, and then it would sort of narrow up to the center, and it felt like a stupa. And I would follow it around like a stupa, and like this. And then my breath changed, and it was no longer a stupa. But that image of something really holy like that was very inspiring for my mind. It was healthy. It concentrated my mind. But then it became an obstacle because my breath changed. I was no longer wide at the breath and narrow at the top. Suddenly I was barely breathing. It was almost just like a presence. You know, there was no stupa there anymore, and I was confused. I had deluded myself. At first my perception was healthy, but then I didn't need it anymore, and I needed to create a new perception of the breath to push it on to the next step.
So when you say deluded, you had just believed.
I believed it was
much
real.
in that.
I believed it was real, and it was not real. It was a sankhara. It was a complete fabrication of my mind.
Maybe a clinging too?
A little bit of clinging, maybe. And some people stagnate in their meditations because of these mental formations in their mind. They cling to them and they think, oh, when I'm concentrated, this is what it feels like. But that might be true then, but challenge that thought sometimes. So sometimes you need to recognize, and that's a good moment to recognize, to contemplate impermanence, which is the fourth tetrad. Breathing in, contemplating impermanence. Breathing out, contemplating impermanence. Let's see, the other questions were, what is piti? Well, piti comes from the verb pivati, to drink. And so piti is the past tense, having drunk. But it's the sense of being thirsty and having a tall glass of cool water and feeling that refreshment. So a better definition of piti would be, say, refreshment. But it's fullness, and it can be quite amazing. Think of what last time you were really thirsty and you had a cool glass of water, and think how wonderful it made you feel. And it made you feel alive, and it made you feel open in your body. When you're really thirsty, you're closed off in your body, and you're in pain, and you're hurting. You have the nice cool water, it opens you back up again. It makes you feel full and open. And so it would take a long time to go into a lot of the definite feelings of piti. People experience it. It's more the path to get there is very much related to this breathing in, experiencing the whole breath body, breathing out, experiencing the whole breath body. You want to, in fact, we walk around with tension in our shoulders, and tension in our breath, and tension in our hips that's cutting off the blood to our legs, and so we feel pain. We have a leg that falls asleep when we're sitting. Well, you know what? Sometimes if you find that tension in the hip and you relax it, you suddenly feel a rush of sensation go down that leg all the way down to the foot, and the blood comes flowing back into the leg. And you can do that just with your mind, just by breathing and relaxing in a certain way. Sometimes people hold their right side more tense than their left side, and so they're tighter, and that causes pain in their leg. And sometimes people turn with their hips this way or turn with their hips this way, and that can cause pain in the shoulders. Some people drop their chin in meditation. If you lift it up and pull it back and down and relax these muscles, you won't get pain in your shoulders. This is mindfulness of the body. If you know you're doing that, why wait 10 minutes to feel pain in your shoulder? Start away. Sit upright. The Buddha tells people, uttite. He told his monks, sit up straight. Be mindful. He was telling them that to prevent them from future arising of suffering. Right effort, sama vayamo. If you know how to prevent the future arising of suffering, do it. Because the first jhana is, as you just read, is secluded from unskillful thoughts. And if you have an unskillful thought and you're just sitting there like this, and you know that your lack of awareness of your bodily posture, if you suddenly have awareness that this is going to cause you pain, then you should try and sit up right away. You're practicing to prevent the future arising of your suffering, because you know in 10 minutes you're going to be in pain. You're not breathing right if you're sitting like this, if you're slunched over. So these are very much important. And so, but developing that, not just stopping right there, but actually developing, experiencing the whole body of breath in your entire body. I mean, the third step is extremely important to not only preventing unskillful thoughts from arising in the mind, because the more your body feels healthy and happy, the more you're going to have like an impermeable, a raincoat on when it's raining, and you're not going to get wet when there are troubles arise in your mind. They're not going to get a hold of you. You're going to be dry in difficult situations. You're going to feel good and happy and healthy. So there's chaos going on in the world around you at work, but if you have this whole body breathing, there's nothing for the world to latch on to. You're free because you're already experiencing this piti, this refreshment, and you know how to trigger it by your breath, by proper breathing, in and out breathing. And so you say, well, how do I know when I'm experiencing piti? Which is the fifth step, the first of the second tetrad, or the fifth. And the sixth, which is sukha, or happiness. How do I know these things? Well, you know them when your mind is relatively free of these hindrances. The mind is going to experience piti. When you're free of the 5 hindrances, you're going to start experiencing these things. And that can happen momentarily. It can happen in a more sustained way. And it can be in between the two, jumping back and forth. But you should try and notice. And you asked what mind was. Well, how does the Buddha define mind in the Satipatthana Sutra, in the third foundation of mindfulness? It's knowing when things are present in the mind, when greed is present in the mind, and when greed is not present in the mind, when anger is present in the mind, and when anger is not present in the mind. So, and when is moha, delusion, present in the mind, and when is moha not present in the mind? Remember the 5 hindrances, you can map these 3 roots of unskillful thinking onto them. Lobha, dosa, moha. And so the greed is like the first hindrance. Dosa is like the second hindrance. And then the third, fourth, and fifth are variations of moha, right? So, you know, if you can't remember the 5 hindrances, just try and remember what the 3 roots of unskillful thinking are. And greed is always the mind reaching for something. And then dosa is always the mind pulling away. And moha, you don't even know what's going on. Or it's sleepy and you're unaware. It's the lack of knowledge of either coming or going in the mind. And so you ask what citta is, but citta, you know, as the Buddha defines it in the Satipatthana method, is one of the ways that he describes emptiness. It's just knowing when things are not there in the mind. And that is a cause of piti. Knowing that the 5 hindrances are not in the mind is a cause of piti. It's bringing on. So if you know that, you know, these things are not present in your mind, you are safe. You are producing good karma. You are a generator of good karma. The highest form of karma that you could be doing for yourself and your future is to keep lobha and dosa and moha and greed, anger, and delusion at bay. And the best way that the Buddha wanted tool to give you to keep your mind protected from those states, it's completely free, or almost free in the first jhana. And it's much freer in the second jhana. Perfectly free in the third, and perfectly liberated, but only temporarily in the fourth. All of these are only temporary states of freedom from the jhanas. But the mind, when it initially is able to keep these at bay, it experiences it as piti. Because this whole body of breath, this feeling of being open, of the blood flowing throughout the whole body, And the knowledge that you're producing good karma together produces piti. So breathing in, just keep on working on whole body breathing, and you'll experience piti. Keep your mind, know what the hindrances are, know when they arise, have your tool set ready next to you, and address each problem that arises in your mind, and you will arrive at this vitaka, vichara, piti, sukha, and ekagata. And so ekagata just means here, it's not that you have no idea what's going on, it's more like a lookout point. Your breath center, you should be centered in the breath. I'm sometimes in my heart, sometimes I'm at the tip of my nose. It depends, but I choose it and I stick with it for the meditation. You stick with it. Jumping around, how do you know whether your mind is, you're just jumping around the body if you're doing that? It's okay to do it for body scan purposes, but do it methodically and quickly. Go down the right leg, sweep. Make sure it's open and relaxed. Go down the left leg. Start in the lower frame of the body. Scan up. Look for stress on one side. Loose and relaxed. Keep it taut in the center, but relaxed everywhere else. Go up to the heart, then the shoulders, down the right arm, sweep down the left, and then do the head. And then you might need to start over, but make sure that you're clearing out all of these tension and loosening things up until you can feel the whole body as breathing in. You can experience the whole body breathing and the whole body breathing out. You can feel it to the tip of the toes and to your feet. You can feel tingling and aliveness. But the mind, then you need to sort of settle it in on a point somewhere. In the Mahasi method, you use the abdomen coming in and out. It flutters in and out. It's a very relaxing place to put the mind. But whatever you choose, whatever point you choose, stick with it. And that's your lookout point. So you can maintain this whole body breathing while your awareness is setting in a certain point, and look out over the whole body. Okay? And experiment with different areas in the body. They can be in the heart, they can be at the upper lip, it can be, in the abdomen, wherever you want to but find a foundation, a point at which you can look out over feel all the streams of energies of the breathing process going on, and you can sort of notice a period of tension and still maintain your awareness, say, in your heart, in the leg, and relax it on the out breath, and then focus back in at your point. And then you notice some tension creeping up in your shoulder, and you can release there and try and expand your awareness through there and open it out, clean it out, and come back to your breath. And you notice a thought of desire arise in your mind. You focus in perhaps on the opposite, or focus in on the breath to try and ignore it. That's one of the first of the Vitaka Sutras. The Buddha says, if it arises in mind, try and ignore it at first. If ignoring it doesn't work, then you might need to find medicine to it. But the first way you should always deal with any problem is try and ignore it and focus back in on your breath point. That's why you need a breath point, because you need a point from which to ignore an unskillful thought that's arising in the mind. And you need it for like a shelter. Remember the hawk and the quail. The quail says, you hawk, you would have never caught me had I been in my gochara, in my ancestral land. And he says, and so the hawk lets him go, and he flies back to the field, and the hawk comes rearing back down towards him, and the quail jumps out of the way, and the hawk hits the clod of earth and shatters his breaths. And so the moral of that story is that, come back to your ancestral field, come back to your gochara, your breath spot, your Anapanasati Sutra, Anapanasati breath point, mindfulness of breath. Keep coming back there. Make that your clod of earth for the quail. And, you can better measure your distractions from there. Feel the in-breath and the out-breath there. If there's a distraction that arises in the mind, try and ignore it. If it's anger, try and apply metta. If it's intense desire, apply asubha, some type of unattractiveness. Contemplate the unattractive side of the thing that's desiring you, etc. If it's confusion, you can try and increase your discernment, increase your panyati, try and be aware of what kind of confusion it is. Is it too much energy, too little energy? Try and balance that.
What if it's sorrow?
Grief? Well, you can...
just to be mindful of thinking what's going on around
You can, I mean, if you've been grieving for a long time, then just know that it's the condition, that we're all jara damohi jara nanatito. I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable, you know. Vyadi damohi vyadi manatito. I am subject to illness. Illness is unavoidable. And Maranadamomhi, Marananganatito, I am subject to death. Death is unavoidable. Those are the first 3 of the 5 contemplations that the Buddha asks us to contemplate every day. The resistance in your mind is the resistance of life itself. And you know, the more you can contemplate when your mind is feeling wholesome, those things, the better more skillful you'll be at dealing with them when that grief feels stronger, because sometimes it's hard to deal with it right away. This one grieving mother came to the Buddha once. She was holding her dead baby in her hand, and she wanted the Buddha to heal it, but you know, she didn't want to believe that it was dead. And I think the Buddha had her go from house to house and ask something about the mustard seed. Why am I blanking on it all of a sudden? To ask, anyway, I'm totally blanking on it. But if anyone had not heard of anyone dying or something. And of course everyone had someone who had died. And so it helped the woman to realize that death is something that we all experience, and everyone has an intimate experience of death in their life, and it helped her get through her grieving by actually seeing that and investigating. Other people are dying too. Since the beginning of time, if you could pile up every body, if they hadn't have decayed, that have been here on this planet, all the animals, all the insects, we would be swimming in bodies if they didn't decay and disappear. Death is absolutely all around us. It's in every dust particle in the air that we breathe. There are carcasses of human bodies, of all sorts of animals and living things that are all around us. And like I said before, it's part of the luminous mind. It is a joyful knowledge. Once you accept that, the mind goes through a state of liberation. That's why the fourth tetrad begins with the contemplation of impermanence, and it ends with liberation of the mind. Contemplating this is a wholesome activity for the mind. It leads to joy and happiness, and it intensifies the piti that we were talking about before, this sense of refreshment. The more your mind accepts this, the more it is non-resistant towards these first 3 things. The 3 dhammas, jara, damohi, jaranganatito, I am subject to aging. Aging is unavoidable. Think what all the crazy things people do to pretend to themselves they're not aging. And it starts very young. I know people in their early 20s who are already worried about aging and hiding it. And then illness, too. Oh, I'm not sick. They go to work and get everyone sick around them, but oh, no, I'm not sick. Or people get depressed when they get sick because they don't see themselves as a sick person, and then they get a serious disease, and it starts changing their body, and their body image changes, and they don't like it, and they get depressed. But if you already contemplate that when you're healthy, your mind will be much faster at accepting that and have more extra energy to actually healing. No, seriously, you'll heal faster. It's actually better to admit these things to yourself now when you're healthy, relatively healthy, than it is when you're on your deathbed. Same thing for death. And it helps to see other people dying too is very healthy before you have to see your own death. So be a friend to people who are aging. Be a friend to people who are ill. Be a friend to people who are dying. If you have a chance to sit with someone who like that, take advantage of it. It's good for them to have a friend next to them, and it's good for you as well to see that. So grieving is, it's all those things.
Regret fit in all of this.
Mm-hmm.
What's that?
Regret.
could I just, I know that I'm not teaching, but this is just something that...
Teach.
Okay. So one of my favorite teachers, Ajahn Brahm, tells the story really frequently, and I don't know if this is from any of the suttas, but it's about the demon in the king's castle. And it's just, one day the king is away, and a demon is at the gates, and he storms the gates of the castle, and he invades. He just goes around destroying the inside of the castle, and none of the king's attendants can do anything about it. Then the king returns, being a very wise king. He says, "Okay, guards, everybody stop trying to get rid of this demon." And he says, "Okay, demon, come sit on my throne. Would you like some tea? Would you like some cake?" And he just takes care of the demon, and the more he pampers this angry beast, the smaller it becomes, until it just vanishes. And it's up to you to interpret, but I always took it as being, if you have an emotion state and you cannot heal it through like these contemplations, just kind of like, it's okay not to be okay. Just kind of embrace that and let the demon sit in the king's throne for a while. Anyway, is that from Suta?
No, not that I know of, but it could be. I just don't know it. It's possibly a Thai folktale.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think it may be 75. About the leper who has all the scabs and it's near the fire so that you can scratch them. It's supposed to represent sensual desire.
It's Malunkyaputta Sutta, I think. Yeah.
And then the physician would cure the leper, and then the question is, would the leper envy, the former leper envy the leper his fire pit once the underlying root cause has been removed?
Would he still burn himself to feel better?
Right. And the answer obviously is sensual desire would not be something that would return.
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent image.
The underlying leprosy.
The root cause.
Mm-hmm. It's a leper has leprosy, so he's always wanting to itch, and so he goes to the fire to burn the scabs, which represents the object of sensual desire.
Mm-hmm. It feels good when you have leprosy to actually be near a flame.
So essentially, it's a temporary relief of an underlying suffering, is what the central object of sensual desire. And then the question is, once the physician would cure the leper of the leprosy, would he envy seeing a leper at the fire once he's had the underlying sensual desire removed at the root?
Mm-hmm.
That's deep.
Mm-hmm. It's worth reading that sutra. It's another important meditation sutra. I think it's 75. So the big meditation sutras, like we started at the beginning, are the Satipatthana Sutta, Majjhima Nikaya number 10, the Anapanasati Sutra, Majjhima Nikaya number 118. I would say the Maharahula Wada Sutta, I think number 60, both the number 61 and number 62 are very focused on meditation, on developing a skillful mind for meditating. And the Malunkyaputta probably is up there too, number 75, a little more advanced.
There's several other metaphors, I believe.
Oh no, I'm just saying in general for the entire, just for looking at general.
There's several other good metaphors. I'm just.
Oh yeah. And the food one that I spoke to you about is Samyutta Nikaya 47.8, 47:8, and the quail and the hawk that I read to you was Samyutta Nikaya 47.6.
You're talking about the one with the eons and eons of time? Is that what you're referring to? Is the first one?
The food one? No, that's when the chef is looking at the king and discerning what it means. And the curries and different things. And the fortress one is Anguttara Nikaya 7:63, 7:63, if you want to go and look those up at some point. Is there... Oh my goodness, you didn't stop me.
You didn't talk
Hopefully.
about pride.
We'll have to talk about pride another day, Amy.
I know.
It's late. I apologize for... an hour and 14 minutes. Well, Shall we?
Cut this into
Shall I-
this podcast.
Thank you.